I can tell you it's very disrupting for anybody that lives within the project itself. There's many times that your road will be blocked, for some of us, there's one way in and one way out, and so you have to wait. It's not blocked all the time, all day long. Sometimes it's 4 hours because they're delivering the blades, the towers, whatever. And I noticed that even some of the farmers would have to wait until the roads were clear. So most of the time, without notification, you could be out grocery shopping and come back, and you've got groceries in your car and ice creams and melt and whatever, because you can't get into your house. So another thing is the noise. I've heard a lot this evening about the noise and decibels and all that. They are noisy, and I can tell you that you hear a swish that sounds like a jet, whatever. But the reality is that they are noisy. I can tell you, whichever way the wind's coming from, they are less noisy when you're on the back side of the blade as on the front side of the blade. Either way, they are noisy. I can tell you when you really know how noisy they are is when they're not running. You go outside and it is so quiet. You cannot believe the difference. You can hear birds singing, whatever. That's just the way it is. Another thing is the wildlife. Where I live close to Lake Evergreen, south of it, and we've always had birds, deer going through our property and so forth. We have no deer now. We haven't had deer for quite some time. But birds, less of the birds. And we always enjoyed that, feeding the birds, especially in the winter, and that doesn't happen either. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the landscape. I've heard a lot of people talking, the gentleman before me, about the landscape. Where I live, you could, before the construction of these, you could see forever and a beautiful sunset. But everywhere I look now, all I see is the towers. Also along with that is the flicker. The flicker is not all the time. It happens mostly in the AM and the PM for me. Other people, it depends on the location, when the sun comes up. And it happens all year round because of the location of all these. Fortunately for me, I always get the flicker. But again, at the most 1 hour in the morning and about an hour in the afternoon. The flicker cannot be reduced by shutting your blinds or anything like that. Most of the time, my wife and I just decided it's about time we go to breakfast, so we'll leave. Or we'll go to dinner somewhere just to avoid the flicker. But it does occur. The last thing I want to say, after all of this, and I watched the project through the entire process, what I wanted to explain to you what I got out of this. Nothing. I got nothing out of it. That's all I have. I just wanted to pass on what it's really like to live, and I do live in the middle of all of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
When this wind farm was announced, did you know about it right away, or how did you first find out about it?
Through our rural grapevine, which was, the decision was already made, knew nothing about it. And you know, where they measure the wind, they have a tower they put up, and it was half a mile from my property. And then I would drive by it every day and wondered, the farmer must be measuring something. I had no idea what was going on. until we learn after the fact.
And did you attend the hearings during
Yes,
that project?
yes, I did. Yes.
Have you had to file any complaints in any nature in order to establish, you noticed the noise, you noticed the flicker, have you had any independent companies test these levels on your property, or?
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You've talked about noise. Do you feel anything? We've heard some testimony on infrasound, the lower decibel range. And have you or your wife, you can't really testify on her behalf, but do you sense that there's any other vibration that you feel?
When they first fired those turbines up, we felt vibration in the base of our house. And again, it doesn't seem to be there now. So could it possibly be caused by those? I can't say. But it was there in the beginning. I know that when you're standing out on the road, or you're between them, you got one on each side of it, and they're 1,500 feet apart, sometimes you'll feel vibration. But again, I don't know what it is. I would like to blame it on that, but
Have you noticed any cracks appearing in your house, in the plaster foundation or anything like that weren't there before?
To answer that, I have not noticed cracks in the foundation, but I will tell you this. The contour must be much different when they put the cable underground. They're digging up everywhere. They've crossed waterways and so forth. We've had all kinds of problems with the waterways around our house. Since the start of this project, I have watered my basement, especially in the spring when it rains, which I never had before. I have a sump pump, but I also it's an older farmhouse, and I have drains in the floor, and the water comes up through the drains.
How far away from your house were these conduits or whatever was put underground? Just an estimate.
It's just south of my property. I would say 500 feet.
Uphill, downhill?
From that, I am uphill.
How large is the acreage you live on?
5 acres.
5 acres. I said I didn't hear it. Sorry. Do you notice in the noise in your house?
Yes.
Every day?
I'll give you an example. A lot of people go to sleep with a fan running, okay? And my grandkids love a fan every night. But in the summertime, when it's not real hot outside, you have your windows open. You do not need to run the fan because you can hear those, and it's not as strong as a fan right next to your bed, but you can still hear those at night.
Does it bother you getting to sleep, or did you get used to it, or what do you?
At first, it was annoying, very annoying. 5 years, you get used to it. I mean, what else can we do?
You're being honest. That's what we want. You seem like an honest guy, and that's what we want to hear. So, any other questions?
Have you talked to the company that runs that wind farm about your water problem since then? I mean, they were supposed to have fixed all the field tile and everything that they crossed, but obviously they could or missed one.
I do not live too far from the, where the offices are and the substation. I will tell you that it wasn't long after we had the water problem, and I went there to talk to them about, you know, what is going on here. And to be honest with you, I got the runaround. But the next time I went, it was a different company. It wasn't Invenergy. They had sold, and now I'm talking to people and they're like, you should have taken care of that before. I never went back.
Questions from staff? Applicant?
Nothing.
And come forward.
Jeff Powell, POWELL, 32897 East, 2700 North, Chanel, Illinois. You mentioned how you haven't seen any deer and the birds that you enjoyed don't come around anymore. I like to go outside at night and look at the stars. That's one of the reasons why I moved to the country. What's it like at night?
You mean what it's like to be outside at night? It's noisy, I know that.
But can you still look at the stars? Is there a red glow from the lights flashing upon you? That's what I'm curious about.
In our project, not all of the towers have the red light flashing, okay? Now, I believe the 3 of the 4 do not have the light flashing. So yet you can be outside, you can look straight up, see the stars and all that. You don't want to look north, south, east, or west. You need to look straight up. But I can tell you that from one of our picture windows, and we're sitting in there watching TV, sure enough, the one straight out there, the light does work, and it goes off and on. You know, based on the experience prior to approaching the company about the issues, we just pulled the blind. That's what we did.
Okay. And I too live near a waterway and have concerns about water coming in my basement. Did you have to add a sub pump? You said you had one.
We have one sump pump. I did not do anything. We just, I bought a pump, I run the hose down, and when the water comes up, I just pump it outside through one of the basement windows.
So now you have to keep everything up off the floor?
It is.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
Dave Duzan, 24-322 North, 2250 East Road, Lexington. DAVEDUZAN. Mr. Ryan, you spoke to the fact of during construction of the wind turbine project that there was frequent road interruptions. In your opinion, if you would have had a heart attack or a fire, how easy would it have been for emergency vehicles to get to your location?
I don't know, but how could they get through, you know?
So you might be cold before they get there.
It could happen.
Yeah.
We were worried if we even went to EMS, well, Carlock Fire Department. And I believe that there was some discussion already about if, in case if this were to happen.
Yeah,
But it still makes you wonder
yeah,
when the road is blocked.
yeah. That's all I have.
Any other questions? I think we're going to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Tim Killian,
I pass.
Lindsay Bachman,
Would you like to be sworn in?
Yes, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you should give in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. My name is Lindsay Bachman. I haven't spelled my first name yet. It's Lindsay. Last name is Bachman. I live at 23479 East 2700 North Road, Lexington. I am a lifelong resident of McLean County, specifically Lexington. My parents are also lifelong residents as well as their parents, which makes me the third generation to call McLean County home. My husband was raised in Woodford County but has been here for the last 7 years. We recently chose to make this our permanent home and to raise a fourth generation of McLean County residents. Unfortunately, for the first time in my life, I'm being forced to wonder if we made the right decision. For the 8 years that I've known my husband, we've wanted nothing more than to raise our family in the country. We both had the privilege of growing up on family farms, my family raising cattle, and his family growing corn and soybeans. I firmly believe that there is no better way to spend a childhood, and we wanted that life for our own family. We spent 5 years working hard, saving money, and praying for the opportunity. Finally, last spring, that opportunity came. On March 8th, 2017, our offer was accepted on a small farm north of Lexington. On April 21st, 2017, we closed and it officially became ours. I am not exaggerating when I say that the 3 happiest days of my life have been the day I married my husband, the day our daughter was born, and the day we bought our farm. Although I will say the order could depend on the day. The last 9 months of living on our new property have been some of the very happiest of my 30 years. My daughter, who celebrated her 2nd birthday in our new home, I actually, I grabbed her picture off the wall as I was walking out the door. I'll just put that here. She loves nothing more than to be outside. I stay home with her. We are home almost all day, every day. The weather has to be pretty bad for us to not spend as much time outside as possible. In the summer, this meant 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock or even later at night. My entire adult life, all I've ever wanted is a front porch that faces west to enjoy our beautiful central Illinois sunsets and unobstructed views. We have that at our new home, and it is truly my most favorite place in all the world to be. In fact, this past summer, my husband knew that if he wanted to do something that meant a lot to me, it would be to put our daughter to bed so I could spend my evening on the porch with a good book. Now, after only 9 months of getting settled and enjoying our new home, it's all being threatened. We were given no notice of a possible wind farm from the couple that sold us their property. Whether or not they had a legal obligation to disclose this information, I do not know. But being a longtime family friend, and a family that we see at church every Sunday, one would think they would have felt a personal obligation. We are set to have 5 turbines within 4,600 feet of our house. I actually, before Kelly testified, I had no idea that she was going to be bringing up that exact number in some of the medical research that she did. The closest of those being only 1,710 feet away from our foundation. Ironically, 3 of those 5 turbines are on family ground associated with the couple that we purchased our home from. They moved to town, and not only will they reap the financial benefits of these turbines without the negative side effects, but they may have knowingly put my family in a compromising situation. I can sit here and tell you with 100% certainty that had we known what might happen less than a year later and the effect of which it could have on us, we more than likely would not have purchased our home. You were all here on Tuesday night when I noticed my own home on Mr. Slagle's slideshow. You saw it. Our property was up there. We were, I would say, more than 3/4 covered in red. The only small portion that was in the yellow was the northwest corner of our property. None of our buildings are there. We spend none of our time there. It is my understanding, though, from last night's meeting, that his sound study will not be considered applicable due to him not being deemed an expert. However, as a homeowner with an obligation to protect and speak up for my family, that does not make it any less applicable to me. I would also venture to say that if any of your homes were being presented as being threatened in such a way as mine was, your feelings toward Mr. Slagle's testimony may be different as well. I have with me a copy of Mr. Hankard's sound portion of Invenergy's application to the county. On page 13 of that study on page 13 of that study is a table of highest predicted noise levels at non-participating residents. My family's residence falls in the number 2 spot on that table. I will admit, all of these sound figures are a bit hard for me to make sense of, but I do know that the potential noise levels at our home are extremely close to those that Ted Hartke testified to on Tuesday night. I am begging you, each one of you, to not do that to my family. At the very least, if you vote to allow this project, I ask that you would please consider safer setbacks of these turbines to our homes. Unfortunately, this is not the fact-based testimony I wanted to bring before you tonight. Our family was hit by illness this week, and I have spent that time tending to my child. It is more emotionally charged than I had intended because that is what became easier and frankly quicker for me to compose. But at this point, that might not matter. You've heard the facts already. You didn't need me to reiterate them. Whether or not you choose to take them as seriously as those of us threatened with this situation are, that's not my choice to make. At this point, you need to know that there are very real people facing very real consequences of your actions, actions that we have very little to no control over, but will experience the greatest amount of turmoil from. I debated being here tonight. My daughter's at home sick, and I originally felt that my obligation was to be at home with her. But the more I spent my day thinking about it, I came to one conclusion. My daughter will never remember that I wasn't home to be with her tonight. But I can make sure that she is able to someday remember that her mom did everything in her power to keep her safe, to keep her comfortable, and to keep her happy. And that means being in front of you tonight. I've already lost plenty of sleep over the thought of our future in regards to this wind project. I'm going to ask you one more time to please not be the reason I lose more. At the end of the day, I'm only responsible for advocating for 3 people: myself, my husband, and my daughter. Regardless of the outcome of your decision, I will be able to know that I did everything I could to stop it and to stand up for us. But you, as a board, are responsible for the health and safety of many more people than that. Very real people living very real lives whose quality of life is very much at stake. If you vote to move forward with this wind project and our lives are as affected as much as I believe they will be, I sincerely hope that you possess enough of a conscience to lose a little sleep right alongside us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Questions of the board?
Do you know the numbers of the wind turbines, Kelly?
That's okay, I haven't been called Kelly before. I do. Let me find that paper. I don't have the distances with me tonight.
That's okay, all I need are the numbers.
Okay, 32 is the closest one that I referenced. 31, 33, 105, and I believe 29 are the 5 that I mentioned are within 4,600 feet. So if I were to say 32 is probably our biggest concern, and the one that if I were to ask you to specifically take action on one, would be to at least move that one further from our home.
And I'm sorry, I got 32, 31,
33,
33, 105, and then what was the last one?
I believe 29.
Okay. Thank you.
Staff have questions? Applicants? Anyone in the audience have questions? Looks like we're up.
Okay,
Thanks for coming.
that was easy. Thank you for listening.
Jared Hudson.
That's right.
I think we're gonna swear you in this time.
Yeah, that'll be for real.
You're a good sport, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case now in hearing be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and address and spell your last name.
Sure. Jared, Jarrod, Hudson, Hudson, and 2450 North Road, 3100 East Road, Lexington, Illinois, Lawndale Township. It's actually kind of interesting that Lindsay just went before me because we're in a very similar situation to them, to where the previous homeowners, I believe, left because of the project. We did not know, which explains the deal we got on the house. But so with that, I'll get into the letter I whipped up before I came. As a non-participating resident within the proposed area of the Invenergy project, my wife and I have many concerns about what life might be like if the project goes through. My wife and I both grew up in the country, and I have been connected to agriculture since the day I could walk. Over the past several years, we have lived within the city limits of a few towns in McLean County because we wanted to see what city living would, if it would be better for our kids, since we did not know what that was when we were growing up. It did not take very long for us to realize that we wanted to get back to the country in the worst way because of the peace and quiet and freedom that it gives. Needless to say, this wish was easier said than done, since a nice house in the country with land in McLean County is typically not cheap. Luckily for us, we found a home on a few acres east of Lexington that was exactly what we were looking for, and we moved in on October 6, 2017. We felt like we hit the jackpot. We love the house, we love the land we have, the open views of the sunrise and sunset, and the peace and quiet. We are fully aware of some of the inconveniences that can come from rural living, such as the smells, dust, farm machinery, noise, etc. But we are completely fine with those things because we have been around them most of our lives. Unfortunately, our joy was quickly squashed when we found out about the proposed Invenergy plan. Their plan has a turbine placed about 1,500 feet upwind from our house. It shocked me to find out that the setback for these turbines was only 1,500 feet, even though they are much larger than any other in McLean County and have more than double the sweep area of those that are existing. I do not know yet if the blade noise, shadow effect, or motor noise will have any adverse effects on my family or not, but I do know that I do not want to have to just wait and see. I have a hard time believing that the best interests of the residents within the footprint of this project have been considered. Has there been a survey sent out to all residents involved to find out if anybody has sensory issues, such as kids with autism or Asperger's, or any condition that these effects would have a greater impact on. I know that I have not received anything of that sort. Is a 1,500-foot setback with much larger turbines guaranteed to not create issues with neighbors, especially those with sensory issues? My concerns are not just limited to the potential health issues, but I also have concerns with the longevity of wind farms. It should be no secret to anyone that wind companies are highly subsidized by the federal government. Not a single wind energy company would be in business if they did not get their pockets lined by the government. My question is, what happens to the established wind farms and when, or hopefully, the federal government decides to cut all funding to wind energy? I know that Invenergy is supposed to be setting aside something like, I think the number I heard was $50,000 per turbine for removal if that happens. But that money will not even exist in an account for several years. What if funding gets pulled before that time frame? Or what if the company goes bankrupt and there is no company that wants to buy them? I also have a hard time believing that full removal of a turbine, concrete, rebar, etc. would only cost $50,000. Because if you probably look at your homeowner's insurance, removal for your house is at least that, and a turbine would be much more involved. There are other wind companies that have had much more set aside. For the acreage that does get used with the wind farm, will it change to be zoned commercial rather than agriculture? When the 1 acre turbine and 15 acre substation get taken out of agriculture production, they should then be zoned as commercial property. That is no different than if I let a convenience store or any other company build on 1 acre of my land. The McLean County Board would have that acre of land changed to commercially zoned within a heartbeat. We hear that the wonderful benefit of having this wind farm is that it will bring all kinds of tax money to the local schools and to the county. I would like to know that if this is the case, and with McLean County already having several wind farms, has anyone's taxes ever gone down? Are schools really that much better off? I know that my taxes have increased every year in the 10 years we have lived in McLean County. So in my mind, the only financial benefit for those projects is to give our county and local governments more money to waste. The supposed influx of tax dollars never really goes to benefit the citizens of the county. I am also curious to know if Invenergy is going to offer all 450 non-participating property owners a neighbor agreement and property value guarantee agreement like they did to the residents of Livingston County to the tune of $15,000 to $20,000. I do not care about the money, nor necessarily know that I would even take it if they offered it. But I am curious to see if they're willing to treat McLean County residents like they were prepared to treat Livingston County residents. I would also like to know if they are going to give all non-participating residents a 24-hour hotline phone number to call in order to have turbines shut down at night if residents cannot sleep. If they do not, are the members of the ZBA and McLean County Board that may potentially vote in favor of this project willing to give us residents your phone number so we can call you instead? Going back to my comments earlier about how happy my wife and kids and I were about finally being in the country, excuse me, and having land with a beautiful view as God intended, my heart broke the other night this week when I got home to find that my wife was already looking at houses online in order to get out while we still could. We've already poured out a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in our new home that we love so much in the 4 short months that we have been there. And now we face the possibility of our dreams being shattered by a company that is only concerned about money and a select handful of people that will vote on the project. I am obviously opposed to this project going through because I do not feel that the limited benefits will outweigh the downfalls of the project. I hope that everyone here seriously takes to heart all sides of the equation and that you would ask yourselves if you would be willing to have your house surrounded by wind turbines only 1,500 feet away. And please remember that the duty of government and all levels of it is to uphold the state and federal constitution and protect the rights of its citizens, which are whom all government employees report to. And it is not the duty of any government body to help pad the pockets and greed of corporations. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Do you know which turbine is marked yours, or marked the 1500?
I can't recall the number on it offhand.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it on the map.
You mentioned autism and other concerns. Do any of your children have these sorts of afflictions?
Fortunately, mine do not, but I am aware of a few within Lexington that do.
Questions from staff, the applicant? Anyone in the audience have questions? We're wearing them down. I think you're okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Jolly.
Push the button. You want to be sworn in or affirmed?
Sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this case now in hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and address, spell your last name.
Tim Jolly, Jolly, 26759 East 2700 North Road, Chenal. Well, first I'd like to start out that there's no way that I can speak as eloquently and completely as what Eric Elder and the last gentleman did. But you could ditto everything they say to my circumstance. I've testified before. I've started testifying in these hearings since October of 2016, when I first started and undertook to try to set the zoning ordinances for what this wind farm is about to do to this county. At that time, I addressed the decommissioning. There was a agricultural impact mitigation agreement. And what I was dealing with, or what I was asking about, was the decommissioning of the concrete that was in the ground, what it would take to get rid of this mess above the ground. And the mitigation agreement suggested that they grind the concrete down to a 5-foot level below the ground. Invenergy didn't think that they should have to go that far because that was too costly. So what they were suggesting was 48 inches. So that was the first time that I noticed that they seemed to think they were calling the shots in this operation. After that evening, there were several people on hand. They all signed up just like these meetings have been done. And about second or third on the list, there was somebody that had signed up to testify to the sound or the noise or something to that effect. And I believe that they even had contacted Dr. Schomer to come and testify at that time. When they got to his name, they saw that he had boxes, as you see here, people with testimony that's pertinent to this situation. So they asked him and told him that everybody was going to have a chance to speak. If he could sit and wait until the end and have his presentation heard. It was 10 minutes till 10. Not even that. I think it was like 9:57. And he began his presentation. He couldn't even get into what it had to do with the sound. He couldn't even get into the particulars of his presentation, and he was cut off. The hearing that night was not continued. There was not another one scheduled to hear that facts on that I know of. But just like everybody I've heard, this thing's been rushed through, shoved through, and not told to anybody. None of the Chenal or Lexington papers have had notices of these hearings for the people that it affects. So to that fact, that in itself, it ought to be denied completely. Then you have towns of Chenal and Lexington put in a very bad circumstance. Invenergy approaches them, tells them, if you put turbines within the 1.5 mile surface around your town, we'll give you money. That's a bribe. They wanted to put 18 turbines inside the 1.5 mile around Lexington. Ridiculous. That town is growing, thriving. The only small town in this area that has a school, K through 12. I'm from Chenal. I know what it's like to have a school dissolved, not something that's agreed to, but dissolved by a school board that I sat on, that I opposed. 4-3. We had a board election to get rid of those 3, but we couldn't get the 4th vote. So Lexington decides to barter with Invenergy. Whether they raise the price, I don't know. But somehow they decided to accept 9 turbines on the west and north side because they wanted to advance their expansion on the east side. So they wanted to agree to them. I think they're getting like $1,500 a turbine to agree to that agreement. So then, before that even, they went up to Chenal, and they have 4 turbines in their 1.5 mile area. I've talked to the mayor in both towns. The people of the towns don't even know what hit them. The mayor in Chenal, after visiting with him, I believe he abstained his vote, but the councilman voted it through, clear. So now you've got 9 in Lexington, 4 in Chenal, that are within the limits that you set for them to keep out of. So that's the second point that I see, that Invenergy is trying to control this show. So then we get into this hearings. I missed the first one. I wasn't even sure when it was. I just had a friend told me. They were at Heartland College, which is great. It was a great setting. We had good presentations. Invenergy spent 4 days presenting their evidence. They had evidence that was pretty interesting, but it was all paid for by Invenergy. So you have sound system, or the sound testimony, where you're adding decibels, subtracting decibels. You've had so many figures and things thrown out there, how can everybody understand? The thing is everything I saw, they were at the state limits. They were right there. There's also, those state limits are to the foundation of the house. Just as you've heard testimony tonight, we don't stay in our house. I heard testimony the other night that it's at nighttime is when you check it. People work at night, people live outside at night. I go out and see stars at night. So why aren't those taken into account? It's a 24/7 our homestead. We live on a house, in a house that's rented. It's got approximately 5 acres. We use the entire area. We are renovating, and I testified to this at that October of 16. We're renovating a house that's been in my family since 1864. I'm a 5th generation farmer, proud to be so. We bought the house on 80 acres. The buildings is there again about another 5-6 acres. Use every bit of it. They don't measure to the edge of the property that we use. They measure to the foundation of a house. I am not staying inside my house. We are spending a lot of money to renovate this house, and now all of a sudden this comes up. Now, this last week, I find out that once this is over, February 6th, they're gonna undertake an EDP application that's right where that house is. Now we get to do it again. How many times is it gonna go? Where does it stop? These people come in, they do their dog and pony shows, they get on their greed train, and they leave town. This is our lives, we lived here, my family's been here. I'm emotionally tied, and I can't speak as well as they do. Questioning on the farmland aspect, each turbine takes up an acre of ground. Each acre feeds 2 to 4 people. 100 turbine projects could possibly take food away from 200 to 400 people. You heard tonight the population is going to get to 9 billion. It ain't going to stop there. They don't make farmland no more. When it comes down to it, what do you want to do? Eat food or have electricity? That's where your decision needs to lie as far as farm ground goes. But as far as the people's houses and that, it's got to come down to what's important to you. Staying in town where there is no turbines, or you want to live out where the turbines are and take your chances at what the repercussions are. And I want to live there with no repercussions. There hasn't been any before. We were fine before they got here. We'll be fine when they leave without this project. Thank you. I'll stay here.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Question from the board?
How close was, on this project, is the nearest turbine?
On this project, just down the road, I want to say, they're within a mile, a little over half a mile, I'm not sure. This project don't concern me as much as the EDP, because they're 550-foot wingspan, I'll call it. There I have one 1,644 feet behind my house. That's why I'm concerned. These need to be stopped, period. Subsidies and everything. If there were no subsidies, there'd be no windmills. That's where it stands.
And so you farm, and you farm in and around this area?
Yes.
Fairly close to where all these are going to be going in?
Yes, I do. I have 2 farms where our home place is. We have 80 acres that we purchased in 2004, our home place, to keep it in the family. A mile over, going to be a mile over to a mile over. 160 acres that's in our family that my grandfather went from that house, the homestead. Started 160 acres back in about 100 years ago, 1970. And we have 160 acres there that my 3 brothers and I, we are in my mom's trust. My wife and I actually bought 60 acres off of my aunt first. And then now my brothers and I, 4 of us, we split the 100 acres in a trust. So they are involved too.
There's a reoccurring theme that we've heard through the course of these meetings, which is we just found out, we just heard about this. What, and I guess I should be asking this more often, what form of notifications are reaching, say, you?
Okay. Well, we have to actually go back to 2016 meeting, okay? And that was just by word of mouth that, hey, they're in town, okay? Didn't know them. They never talked to me, but somebody had told me they're in town. This is even before the office in Lexington, I believe. I don't know, but I didn't know about it. So I found out about the meeting. Well, then of course I'm going to be involved. After that meeting, I was not happy with what I saw. From what I understand, your recommendations went to the board, and I think they came back to you. And that mitigation agreement then ended up going to 5-foot grind ton of concrete, which is what it should be, and some other things that should have been clarified. So the other notifications that I've had is just by small town word of mouth. There's nothing in, there ought to be some kind of public notice in the town square people go to. But no notice. I don't get the pantograph. I don't get the leader. We get the Lexingtonian and the Chenal Town Crier.
Oh, Facebook.
I don't get on Facebook. I wouldn't be on there for nothing.
Any other questions from the board? Staff? The applicant?
No, thank you.
Would anyone in the audience have questions? One.
Amy Winterland, 22825 North, 3075 East Road. I'm not sure I got this down right. You're gonna have Invenergy windmills and EDP turbines?
Where we currently live is a total Invenergy area. Okay. Where we're going to move, there's some Invenergy people there that I don't know why they were included in this, because they're in Yates Township, but they're Invenergy customers. Why they're not involved in this, I have no idea. Maybe they can answer. But right there in Monk, now you've got those with Invenergy, and then this last week, now you're throwing EDP on top. And I don't know how they intermingle or what. I haven't seen enough maps or to figure out how they work.
So I kind of have questions about that. Can we ask you guys questions about that? Like how they intermingle and whether they're talking to each other as far as noise studies go?
We have no information about it as a board.
Okay, so setbacks and how that.
I say interesting.
Okay, so you don't know yet how they're dovetailing together.
I do not. I have to do research because, once again, this is just something that came up.
Thanks.
If I may, real quick, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, it's not to do with you, Amy. Well, it may, because you've seen them. In the area, I'm a mail carrier. I've seen 6 bald eagles, 2 golden eagles that I know of. I'm not an expert. They're huge. They're beautiful, awesome birds. Never saw them before. I know of a nest just north of Chenal on the way to Pontiac. Took my wife out there last week or so, and we went out and checked out. I've got a picture on my phone. Awesome, awesome sights. We have deer and birds and everything running around as they are now too. So.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks very kindly.
Thanks for coming. You did a good job. You don't have to be a professional to come up and talk.
By the way, you guys, I got to thank you for your time too, and to listen to emotions and stuff. It's got to be hard, but I appreciate your time.
Andrew Jacobs. Samuel Ferrer. Paul Carl. Jack Cotter, Daniel Stewart, Daniel Stewart, Renee Taylor, Bevan Chasten, Elizabeth Cave at Clinton Place in Normal, Ryan Worthy, Jake Bolton, Dwight Strickland, Andrew Downey, that's all we have.
At this point, I would like to see if Dr. Angelo Caparella, who's a specialist in birds, would mind coming up. And you've been doing raptor studies, I believe, systematically through the county, and if you would come give us a little bit of insight on what you might have found, should you have done them through this area, and I don't know, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I haven't talked to you about this other than I knew that you had done them historically, and I don't know if you still do them on behalf of Audubon, and you do them, from what I understand, you do them systematically, and I don't know, okay.
Right, Angelo Caprella, Angelo.
I think you need to be sworn in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was sworn in when I gave my testimony a few times ago.
You're quite loud.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can hear you real well.
I will put it on.
You know, I'm not saying that badly, but I'm just saying, you know, it's actually.
I'm sorry, yeah, no, I understand.
Would be, where else I gotta tell you?
It's my classroom lecturing voice. Sorry about
Appreciate
that.
you coming.
All right, you tell me if I get too voluminous. All right, yes, I'm going to spell it. Angelo Capparella, 907 South Fell Avenue in Normal. Yes, I do raptor studies. There are a project throughout the state, winter raptor surveys, where one sets up 50-mile circuits that you do once each month during the 4 months of what they define as winter. I have one in, I myself monitor one in McLean County and in Tazewell County, and a colleague of mine does one in Woodford County, southeastern Woodford County. I think it may straddle into McLean a little, but I'm not sure. However, my particular route does not go through this part of the county where the footprint of the proposed wind farm is. So I would not be able to directly apply any data from that part of the county. Ours basically goes from Rainview to Downs, and then all the way south to near the DeWitt County border, and then back up through Funks Grove and then Stanford. So I wouldn't be able to address directly from any data that I have regarding raptors.
do raptors range so that any that you had seen in another part of the county would be up there, or is that irrelevant?
Oh, yes, well, oh, yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, as people have noted, bald eagle sightings are certainly, we have certainly seen an increase in bald eagle nests, and the resultant young and adults, they move widely over the area, particularly between feeding areas, wherever the river's open, wherever reservoirs are open and the like. We certainly have good population. I'm sure the same kinds of proportions of raptors that we see in my route, kind of on the southern end of the county, would be present in the northern end as well, in terms of raptors. Any other natural history questions? I'd be happy to try to address them.
Going back to the DNR recommendations, was it your position that they should, every one of them should be followed, or certain ones?
Yeah. In lieu of credible evidence to the contrary, which I did not see, if you compare the IDNR recommendation letter, which is about 15 pages explaining why they made these 7 recommendations, versus the about 2.5-page response by Invenergy, in which they rejected outright 5 of them, and the other 2 only if you tell them to do it, which basically was, to me, opinion versus evidence. I would have liked to have seen, I would have considered evidence against evidence to try to evaluate that, but it sort of bothered me that Invenergy just presented opinions without any reasoned evidence or any evidence about that, versus DNR's rather extensive explanation of why they thought all 7 recommendations should be followed. As a scientist, I'm always open to alternative perspectives. DNR isn't always right, and nobody's always right. Scientific evidence continues to grow. You always have to weigh and balance these things. But as a scientist, I always react negatively when somebody just says, I'm throwing out your evidence just because I don't like it or think that, you know, you're wrong, but you don't tell me why, you don't give me alternative reasoning or anything like that. And I think that's what, I didn't see that happen in previous wind farm applications. There was good evidence that was presented to argue for or against adopting a recommendation, and I just haven't seen that here. And that, I think, is what has troubled me the most from the wildlife perspective. So I guess with a lack of compelling contrary evidence, credible contrary evidence, I would just say adopt all 7. But I didn't actually say that in my recommendation, my testimony. I said 2 of them for sure we need to adopt, and others I think you can strongly argue for by what we know about Henline Creek and what I'm hearing about Patton Creek. But should we, for example, really survey for Franklin's ground squirrel? I could see a case against doing that, but I didn't see them presented. Should we be surveying for mud puppies, which is one of the recommendations? I could see a case you could make scientifically against doing that, but they didn't do it, and I don't know why. So in lieu of that, I just say go with the 7 that the DNR said, because at least they made a case for it. Whether a counter case can be made or not, I think in a few cases that you could make a counter case, but I didn't see it made. So you all will have to evaluate what you think about mud puppies and setbacks and ground squirrels, and I don't envy you being in that position. But if you do look at my own testimony, the bat situation is really an important one to consider, and the adequate setbacks from INAI sites, significant tributaries, as well as the Mackinac, I think is really important to maximize protection of not only a system of nature preserves that is currently operated for the public by Parkland's Foundation, but a lot of land that, to their credit, landowners have kept in really good natural health. I believe very much in private landowners being rewarded in a sense for doing that. Don't compromise what they've done. I hope that kind of gets at what you asked.
Yes, thank you. What kind of studies would help provide the information and the data that it sounds like might be out there or might not be out there?
Yeah, I think
we need a break, but we'll maybe just real short.
Is there an opportunity to tell you this new proposal for Shanola is on the McLean County website? It was January 12th, just posted. I just, not that you need to see it, I just want to let you know it's on your website. It's a new proposal, 58 turbines, other side of Shanola, the 10 that I referenced. Okay, thanks. You seem to not know. So I want to make sure someone, thanks. That was just a private side conversation and everything's so quiet, I'm sorry.
What I'm trying to get at is, is this an opportunity were we to vote for this wind farm? Would there be an opportunity to stipulate that there would be some studies done for like multiple years? And how much would that cost is what I'm trying to get at. I don't want to say do something that would be a huge burden financially or otherwise, and that would be worthless. And I'd like to find out are there some studies that could be done? Should they be multi-year? Can they be done cheaply? Excuse me for being cheap.
Oh no, I work at a public university, so I quite understand the need to do that. And we do science there as well.
Yeah.
I'm too close again.
No, I'm sorry. I feel like that's a pretty detailed question that we're asking for specific studies and specific prices, which is great, and but should we give him some time to prepare that and present that, if you're truly interested in that?
I'm sort of interested. I'm just trying to see if there's a ballpark idea, whether it's $5 or $5 million or.
I don't think these studies done competently are that expensive, just because, at least on some things, like I think I mentioned through cross-examination muscle studies, which I've done as a volunteer with DNR to help them with their budgetary shortfalls. A lot of those kind of basic survey studies, which is clearly what DNR wants. I mean, the one thing I've learned in working in McLean County is, despite the initial appearance of the average person coming here that there's no natural areas left at all, and therefore no wildlife or anything else to worry about, I've been rather surprised at the number of rediscoveries of organisms, Kirtland snake being an example, that I was happily involved with. The fact that I know our local birding community often find things we didn't know existed, still existed in the area. In a few rare cases, we actually discovered things that no scientist knew were here before. So it's behooves us to be careful not to say something isn't here. It's very hard, obviously, to prove an absence. Many of the studies that Invenergy did do on certain target species I thought were very well done. Others that DNR is requesting is where they saw deficiencies, or at least DNR's opinion, they saw deficiencies on things that used to be here, or may be here, or are likely to be here based on knowledge elsewhere. And they're asking Invenergy to invest a little money into doing that. Again, I don't know the actual prices, but typically those things are not that expensive in the grand scheme of things, and don't take that long to do, such as mussel and fish surveys in perennial streams. That's my opinion based on some personal experience where we've just done it for free. Not that I'm offering in this case.
I think we're going to let you go.
All right,
thank you. We're at number 5, rebuttal testimony from the applicant. remember both of you guys are under oath, but you gotta state your name and address.
You bet. It's Kevin, last name Parzyk, P-A-R-Z-Y-C-K. I'm at 1 South Wacker, Suite 1800, Chicago, 60606. Thank you. Okay. Just a short rebuttal here, if I may. Responding to testimony from Mr. Thacker and Schertz, who operate airstrips in and around the project area, we'd just like to sort of respond to that. Since they both testified, we've been in communication with both of them about the project and their concerns with some turbine locations. Concerning Mr. Thacker's airstrip, we've agreed to eliminate turbine number 22 from the project. In addition, we've agreed to shift turbine number 23 to a distance which would be 2,700 feet east of the Thacker runway, which would be in accordance with the request that Mr. Thacker had regarding a half-mile clear on both sides of the runway. And as I said, we had been in discussions with Mr. Thacker regarding that matter.
And we have a couple of pieces of correspondence we want to, Jim Griffin, Shane Banks. We have a couple of pieces of correspondence we want to enter into the record. I believe the next exhibit is 17. Is that correct, Phil, for the applicant?
The next one is 17.
Okay, so applicant's exhibit number 17 is a letter dated January 17th, 2018 from Mr. Thacker to Gordon Gray at Invenergy. And number 18 that I'll pass out in a moment is a letter from the AOPA. Let's see what that stands for. What's that stand for, Marie? It's an airline or airport organization, and it's dated January 18th, 2018, and that'll be applicant's number 18. Thanks.
Mr. Griffin, did you move to admit your exhibits?
I would like to do so, yes.
So moved.
Is that the end of your rebuttal testimony?
No. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. And then the second to that, concerning Mr. Schertz's airstrip, we've agreed, we've spoken with Mr. Schertz on this matter. We've agreed to shift turbine number 78 to the northwest, approximately 1,100 feet. In addition, we've agreed to shift turbine number 74 west 300 feet. And because we had mentioned we were using two different types of turbines, the turbine with the 116 meter rotor is shorter, the tip height is shorter. So what we're proposing is to use the shorter GE 2.3 116 model turbine at that location. So it'll be lower and it's moved west. As I said, we have been in discussion with Mr. Schertz regarding this matter. And we appreciate our communications with both Mr. Thacker and Schertz, and pleased that we were able to, reach an understanding regarding these turbines.
Mr. Parzyk, which way did you say the number 78 is to be moved 1,100 feet?
Turbine 78 is to be moved northwest, approximately 1,100 feet.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Parzyk, has Invenergy also agreed to withdraw and will withdraw from its application turbine number 80.
Well, that's correct. Turbine, we'd also like to remove turbine number 80 from our application, and that's consistent with the half-mile setback from Mackinac River main channel. That's all I have.
I just have one question. Did you say you have an agreement with Mr. Schertz, or are you working on one?
We spoke with him. We discussed it on the phone. We discussed those locations. I wouldn't say that Mr. Schertz is saying, you know, there's going to be turbines in the area, but it reduces the risk that he had expressed in his testimony.
All right, are you ready?
I'm done.
You ready for cross-examination?
I am.
Okay. The chairman asked me to remind everyone, since Mr. Parsick is up here to testify, anyone can come up and cross-examine him, but your cross-examination is limited to only what you just testified to. So that would be turbines 22, 23, 78, 74, and 80, and their removal, their shifting, their withdrawal. So if you'd like to cross-examine him about those things only, please come up.
Phil Lukian's 105 East Sterling Park Road. Mr. Parsick, what I don't see is a requisite as a noise study with the effect of these moving of turbines. Has that been done?
Well, consistent with the recommendations in that were presented at the beginning of the application. The comment is that if the applicant changes the project layout or turbine types, chooses alternative turbine types and/or employs different blades, that the noise analysis shall be upgraded accordingly in compliance than demonstrated. We have run those analyses. At this point, we have not submitted them, but at this point, we have done calculations regarding compliance.
But those have not been submitted for any of us to cross-examine on or review, correct?
They have not been submitted.
So there's no way for us as we sit here to know whether, how that changes any of the noise levels at any of the receptors, correct?
They've not been submitted.
We're not going to get finished tonight, of course. Would it be something that you could furnish to us next week on Monday?
Yes.
Would that be agreeable?
It's agreeable for the submission, but it doesn't give us any opportunity to cross-examine or to have someone review them. It really puts everybody in this. I mean, I know you're trying to get this done. We're trying to get it done as well, but you've put us in a position where they're moving 3 or 4 turbines, I can't count, sorry, and us not having any idea what that does or being able to examine what that does. That it's an impossible situation unless you want to continue this hearing for weeks. And I don't think that's what you want to do.
I'm gonna let my counsel talk. I don't know what we can do to appease this. You know, you're willing to bring it this next week. That's all we can do at this point. And I think that's, to my point, it's all we can do.
Well, I understand that, and I guess I want to just make the point that, and take the position for the record, that the inability to cross-examine on that with any fair ability violates, in our opinion, the Clarion rules, and makes it really impossible for effective cross-examination.
I'll just note I cross-examined all the opposition witnesses, those that I've chosen to, without any prior knowledge of their testimony or their reports.
Just because Mr. Griffin has cross-examined one expert who he knew was coming ahead of time, knew what he was going to testify to, and was very familiar with on a situation where we do not have technical reports like this,
Yeah, what we're gonna tell you is your objection is noted, and we'll take it under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to present in rebuttal?
No, we are finished.
I guess, did the board have any questions about any of this? It would just be on what they testified to now.
This data that was just requested, how quickly will you have it available?
It depends on I mean, I'd have to check with my my noise consultant here as to exactly, I mean, the models have been run. I'd have to look and see how they've been compiled and what we can put into your hands. We would do it as quickly as possible, but you know, I couldn't say I don't have it at my fingertips right now, but it should very, very quickly.
I'm just curious how we can get it into their hands so they can have a little bit more time at least.
Let me just check and see what council's checking with our consultant here. So let me just check.
In the meantime, can I ask another question?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Which of those movements will cause any of these to be closer to a house, closer to a resident, a non-participating resident?
Oh, one moment.
That's really at the heart of all this.
If I can jump in, the staff proposed stipulations, which is what Mr. Parzak read, do permit turbines locations to be moved so long as compliance is demonstrated, and that's a building permit requirement. So there is some flexibility, which I think is a good idea, in order for turbines to be relocated, locations changed, so long as it's demonstrated to be in compliance. So I certainly don't want us to be penalized for trying to move turbines to accommodate concerns that people have and that we're responding to. Otherwise, I suppose we'd have been better off just saying we're not going to respond to those complaints because we don't want to have this continued on for a lengthy period of time. But it's just a statement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Griffin, were you able to find out anything about the noise, the revised or reviewed noise study?
Well, I don't know that we could have a complete noise study by Monday. I mean, Mr. Hankard would be able to testify according to the model that he's reviewed it, and then he's confirmed that. He could give his testimony to that, but we wouldn't have a full report.
So we're being put in an untenable situation of having nothing at a time, no report, and his statement that their expert says it's okay is somehow okay. That's not how this process works. You know it's not how it works. And we have the right to cross-examine, especially expert testimony, which is really what we're talking about here, and effectively cross-examine.
Well, in that case, then, I would suggest that we won't, that the board just enact as stipulations that we undertake these movements, and we'll leave the application as is.
That is, so, well, then I guess I would argue against any stipulations that allow them to move turbines 1,100 feet.
I don't think we're to the argument point.
Well, I guess that's what he's talking about doing, and I think it's important for the board to understand that 1,100 feet is a lot of feet.
I understand that, but
And without us having the right to cross-examine, you've pretty much said he can move whatever he wants later and just tell everybody that it's moved.
if you can save it for argument, I know that the board wants to hear what you have to say. Am I correct in understanding that you are now, your testimony or your rebuttal is different now than it was a minute ago, or is revised?
Well, what's going to be the process going forward? That's, I guess, a question I'd ask for this board to tell us.
I'm not a lawyer, so that's why she's here.
I can only tell you what the board rules are, what the the major case process rules are. You would be allowed to provide rebuttal as you are the applicant and you bear the burden. Interested parties, those that Mr. Lukenhans represent, they could provide serve rebuttal if they chose to do so. At the end, anyone that provided an opening or testimony would be allowed to provide closing argument. Everyone will be given the same amount of time, and once we're done, we're done. So that's where we stand in terms of the major case rules. They're what was handed out to everyone. It's what we started with. It's what we'll finish with. So that's where we are right now.
Ms. Woolley, I think Julia asked what the, whether they would provide, how close it would be to any residents if there were any shifts like this. I don't know if we're going to get any information on shifts or whether there are residents there. So I'm not sure at this point whether we're going to get information on shifts, and if so, would there, how close it would be to any resident.
I can respond to Ms. Turner's question. The turbine moves that are proposed, none of those moves result in a turbine closer to a residence.
I guess that makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't even know what to say at that point. So are you saying, or I guess I'll cross-examine. So these turbines are on the outside.
Can you cross-examine once we're done with our questions, though?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what we're actually doing.
Ms. Turner asked a question.
All right, go ahead, sorry.
If you have a question, ask it.
I did ask a question. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were all done asking questions before we went to the next thing.
We're all done. Let's work something out, okay? What's the best way to handle this?
Well, I think the first thing would actually be to show us to show on a graph where these are, which ones are being moved and where. I'm doing this in a complete vacuum, so that would be number one. I don't think it's fair to the board. I mean, we've heard it moved 1,100. None of these moved anywhere close, so that means they all have to move out. There's got to be a house somewhere. So we need to understand where that is.
We have 5 minutes left, so I mean, that's not going to happen tonight.
No, I know it's not.
Why don't we propose this? Come back on Monday, bring us your proposal, bring us what you have, and we'll see if we can work it out.
And I would ask that anything they are able to get done before Monday, Mr. Griffin definitely knows how to email me.
Can you do that?
I'll pass along information to council as soon as we get it.
I think we're all trying to do the best we can. They're trying to appease a couple of things that were brought up, and this is what we're at. So we're working in the right direction. So we're going to reconvene Monday in this room. We're going to do it at 6 or so. 6 o'clock again. So I don't know what day of the week or what. Monday the 29th. I was trying to get the day, and so on the record, Monday the 29th at 6 o'clock in this room.